Hey guys, this is Goku, and on this channel we talk about poker and ideas that can improve your life. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and click the subscribe button because I'll be honored to have you here. Today we're going to play the last session of our MP2 Open versus Big Blind Call tournament spot. This is the last session because after that we will have 500 hands played, and this is the amount that we play of each spot. So yeah, hopefully we can do a 0 EV session, and let's see if we can manage that. Let's start a new session, and for our first hand we've got ace queen off on a 3 king 6 board. We're gonna bet 2 here, as we should. So far so good, EV loss 0 and the villain folds. Now we've got pocket 5s on a trade deuce 4. I think this might be a bet 5 kind of spot, but I'm gonna bet 2 just in case. Okay, it's a bet 2, but I would assume the rest of the strategy is betting 5 here. The villain folds. So far so good. 4-5 of spades on a 4-8 queen. That's gonna be a bet 2. Yes, it is. Villain folds again. Well, if you're this lucky and the villain keeps folding after the first bet, then maybe we can get to a 0 EV session. Now we've got king jack off on an 8-10-5 with 2 clubs, and I think we're gonna bet 2 here. This could be a check as well. Okay, it's bet 5 ideally 60% of the time, and bet 2 15% of the time. Yeah, we got a little EV loss already, but hopefully we can keep it, you know, under such numbers. Then it will be like -5 BBs of EV loss if you have a few hands like this. Okay, ace deuce of spades on an ace king queen. This is gonna be a bet 2 or a bet 5. Villain calls. 9 of diamonds on the turn. Now do we continue betting here with this hand, or do we check it? I think we can check here, as we should, 95% of the time. And a 10 of diamonds on the river means I think that we're checking it down again. Yeah, I'm gonna check it down, and we should do that. Perfect. King 9, queen 9 of spades on a 10-6 deuce. That's gonna be a bet 2. It is. Villain calls. 5 of diamonds on the turn. Now do we bet this or do we give up on this hand? Let's think. I think we can try and bet this, or should we just give up? I really don't want to lose a lot of EV, so I'm thinking what's the ideal action here with our hand? I think we give up on this. Yeah, okay, the solver thinks it is a give up hand 86% of the time. Now there's a king of hearts on the river. Do we take a stab at this spot, or do we just check it down? I think we take the stab. I can't. Okay, perfect. Taking a stab is the ideal action, so this is what we should do here with our hand, and the villain folds. Ace king off on an 8-5 deuce. That's a bet 2. It is. We get raised. I think we just fold. Yep. Ace 10 off on a tray 7-5 with 2 hearts. It's gonna be a bet 2. It is. We get called. 6 of hearts on the turn. I think we continue betting most of the time here. Could that be also a check sometimes? I'm gonna try and see if a check is a good option here. It's not. It should be 95% of the time bet 3/4 here. Checking is a smallish EV loss, but just 1% of the strategy. King of diamonds on the river. I think we gotta take a stab now, and we're gonna bet again half pot. Okay, that's the ideal action, but played 16% of the time. And the villain raises, so we're gonna fold. Yep. Pocket 9s on 8-6 deuce. We're gonna bet 2. or bet 5. Villain calls. 3 of spades on the turn. Villain leads for a third pot bet. We're gonna call that bet. So we shoot 56% of the time. And the river is a queen of clubs. And do we bet at this or do we check behind? I think we bet a third of the pot here. Okay, actually the solver likes playing 3/4 here, 99% of the time. Betting a third of the pot is just 0.33% of the strategy and a very small EV loss. King Jack off on a 10-4-5. We're betting 2 or betting 5. Villain calls. We hit our Jack, so we continue betting or check sometimes. Well, I mean, a third of the time, which is interesting. Villain folds. Ace-10 off on a deuce-7 king. That's gonna be a bet too. This villain folds. King-9 of hearts on an 8 deuce king. That's a bet too. Yep. Villain calls. Jack on the turn. We continue betting, bet 7 here. Okay, we should rather check here with King-9 suited 99% of the time. It's not worth to bet it here. Pocket aces on a trade deuce-9. That's a bet too. We get raised. Now do we re-raise or do we just call? I think we just call. Yeah, we should just call. Now the villain leads for a third pot bet on the turn. Do we shove or do we just call? I think again we just call. Okay, the solver actually prefers shoving 85% of the time and calls just 15% of the time. Now the villain checks to us and we're gonna shove. As we should, and the villain folds. King Queen on a 5-10-9. Is that a bet 5? Let's see. It is. Villain calls. 8 on the turn. Do we continue betting? Do we check behind? I think we check behind here. Or bet 3/4. Now a 7 of hearts on the river. I think we're gonna raise pot here. Or fold. So folding is 69% of the strategy, raising pot is 30% of the strategy. We get called by 10-7. Pocket kings on a 7-9-4. We're gonna bet 2 or bet 5. Villain calls. Another 9 on the turn, and the villain leads for a third pot bet. We're gonna just call it, as we should. And now deuce on the river and villain leads again. Now do we just call here or do we shove? If we shove, do we get called by a weaker hand? Probably not, so I think we're just calling here. Yep. Ace king on a 6-5 ace. That's a bet 2. And the villain folds. Pocket jacks on a queen 4-7. That's a bet 2 again. Villain calls. Another 7 on the turn. Do we continue betting here or do we check? I think we continue betting. Bet 7. Okay, now. Fuck. We wanted to avoid that, but yeah, we couldn't. At least we learned something. Pocket jacks are definitely not a bet on this turn, on this board. This should be a check 100% of the time. Okay, good to know. Ace-10 off on a king-jack deuce. That's a bet too. Villain folds. Aces on an 8-queen-10. Is that a bet 5? That's a bet 2, 84% of the time. Bet 5, 8% of the time. We get called nonetheless. There's a 5 of clubs on the turn. We're gonna bet 3/4 now, as we should. And the villain folds. Jack-queen of hearts on an 8-10-5. We're betting 2. Or betting 5 actually here. Villain calls. Another 8 on the turn. We're gonna check it down. Or bet 7. And a king on the river means we're gonna fold. Yep. 8-10 of spades on a deuce-7 deuce. Gonna bet 2. Villain calls. 5 of diamonds on the turn. We're gonna check. Okay, it's an overbet 94% of the time with our hand. Ace on the river. We're gonna bet 5. But we're not gonna know what happens here. Ace-queen of clubs on a jack-king 6. That's a bet 2 or bet 5? Okay, that's a bet 5. 49, but bet 2. 26.5% of the time. Another 6 on the turn. I think we continue betting here. Bet 3/4. Yes. Villain calls. And on the river we don't hit our flush. How much do we bet? 3/4 or shove? I think we bet 3/4 here. Okay, actually the solver gives up here a big percent of the time. 80% of the time the solver gives up here. You can see betting 3/4 is a small EV loss, but just 0.08% of the strategy. We get called by a weak king, which is interesting. 6-8 of diamonds on deuce 5-3. We're gonna bet 2. Yep, villain calls. Ace on the turn. I think we continue betting here with our hand, or maybe overbet. Okay, no, it's a bet 3/4. 94% of the time. We get called, and the villain now shoves on the river, bringing in the hard flush draw, but I think we have to call here, right, with our straight. Yep, we should call 100% of the time. And the villain was actually bluffing. Pocket 7s on a 9-8 deuce. It's a bet 2. It's a check, okay, 90% of the time. Bet to the remainder 10. Ace deuce of clubs on a 5-4 jack. It's a bet 2 or a bet 5. Villain folds. And we've played our 25 hands. Perfect. Let's see what kind of score we did. Okay, minus 13 BBs of EV loss. That is fine. Our frequencies have been quite on point. Yeah. Just one fold less than the GTO and one raise, bet or raise more. If it wasn't for this one hand, I guess, a couple of smaller ones, we would have a really nice finishing session. But it was still a pretty good session. I really enjoyed it. We can maybe take a look at our overall stats here. Okay, so the overall EV loss was at minus 18 BBs, so that's really great. Our frequencies have been quite on point. But yeah, I'm gonna review the overall stats in the next video, and I'm gonna also pick some of the most important hands and the lessons that we've learned and I'm gonna do another video on that, so stay tuned for that. Well, thank you so much for watching, first of all. If you stayed this long, please leave a comment, just write GTO or ask any question you might have. Subscribe if you're not already. Yeah, stay tuned for the next videos, because the next one I'm gonna sum up this spot. This has been a really good spot for us. Yeah, compared to the previous ones, we did a really nice EV score, I would say. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.